Thank you. For more, let's turn now to John Stanton, BuzzFeed's Washington bureau chief. John, my colleague at the Washington Post, Dana Milbank, has a column today whose headline goes something like, the president vacations while the world burns. Should he not be on vacation? Should the president not be on Martha's Vineyard at this time?
I mean, look, he obviously is able to be briefed on things and make decisions from Martha's Vineyard. So, and on a practical level, I'm not sure how much of a difference it makes. But from an optics point of view, I do think it matters. I think that people overseas look at that and they think it's a little bit odd. Certainly, domestically, Americans always find it to be a little bit strange when the president isn't back in Washington when there's a major crisis going on. I mean, if there was, we look at the Katrina incident where President Bush was very slow to react to these kind of things. The optics do matter for them, and it does have an impact ultimately on policy, because when they start to have to deal with these kind of fires, these public relations fires, it detracts from their ability to effectively put in place a policy.
Yeah, and then when you look at this discussion between President Obama and his former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, a lot of folks are getting confused about it and reading it only as her disagreeing with him on Syria. I think there's actually two distinct pieces here. One, should we have done more to arm the rebels or intervene in Syria, something the president was interested in doing and then pulled back, as we all know, especially when Congress wasn't interested in authorizing it. And two, does what happened or didn't happen in Syria embolden ISIS? And John, I know you're a close reader of these things, so I'm sure you read the Jeffrey Goldberg interview, which runs 17 pages. It's deep there, and what she says very clearly is, I don't know the answer to whether or not ISIS was further emboldened. We also have something else that is substantively useful here, which is her rather voluminous book about her time at the State Department. If you punch in on Amazon, according to their search, the book doesn't mention ISIS or ISIL ever at all. So during her most recent and contemporaneous review of that period, she definitely was not saying that she had a strategy for the rebels or otherwise that would have prevented ISIS. And to be fair to her, John, in her statement here, she's not saying it would have prevented ISIS. So are people misreading this as all about ISIS and why today's crisis could have been prevented when that's not necessarily what Clinton said?
To a certain degree, I think. I mean, I don't know that ISIS, frankly, was much of a concern to anybody when she was still at the State Department. There were maybe a few people that had seen them coming, but at that time, the Syrian opposition to Assad was still very much a lot of folks that everyone in the world seemed to support. They were very much going out trying to protect themselves, right? And so I think, the Free Syrian Army, and I think that ISIS came out of sort of the chaos that was going on there. The jihadists saw it as an opportunity to step in and sort of build a base of operations, and I do think that she is walking a line. She's trying to distance herself from him without undercutting him, I think. And, we in the media sometimes take that to mean that she's undercutting him because it's a much better story and headline, frankly. But, I think she's also trying not to totally undermine the president on this right now. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's right. John, so the president has made two big promises here. One, that we will not have troops on the ground in Iraq again. And two, that we will help rescue these thousands of Yazidi refugees who are now coming down from the mountain, but still in a very, very bad and difficult situation. How difficult is it going to be to keep both of these promises, given that there is really no certainty as to what's going to happen next? Even he has said the next steps are going to be logistically very complicated. Is he setting too high of an expectation here?
He may be. I mean, look, you move these people off the mountain, you move them to Kurdistan. What happens if ISIS is able to make a major push into Kurdistan? You're going to start having to move people from, not just these folks, but everyone else there. Right. You're going to have a major, humanitarian crisis there again. So I do think that, this notion that we can save everybody without actually committing boots on the ground is a tricky thing to be out there saying.
Because what do you do if for whatever reason, you have to send over a few troops? Then you're in a really bad position.
Right, and I think he's going to avoid that as much as he possibly can. I'm sure that they've had some kind of advisors already on the ground, at least in Kurdistan and maybe in Baghdad, already working with folks behind the scenes. But they don't want to have another recommitment of troops. They don't want to have more Americans dying in Iraq. And I think that is going to be something that they have tried to avoid at absolutely all costs.
John, there have been a lot of critics out there talking about what the president should have done or isn't doing. Is anybody out there talking about what the U.S. government should be doing to try to help support Iraq as it's forming this new government and the newly nominated prime minister?
You know, I think it's easier to criticize the president on things like this than it is to really come up with an obvious solution. I think, you know, Senator McCain has been very aggressive in saying that we should be throwing much more support behind the military in Iraq, the Kurdish military, trying to get Maliki to go. But, you know, I think most folks understand that this is a very, very difficult situation that the administration is facing. Trying to influence, you know, even a very stable government that has, you know, decades or, you know, at least several years of sort of normal operations is a hard enough task. But, you know, the Iraqi government has never been much more than dysfunctional to begin with. And so, you know, trying to go in and have a major influence on what's going on right now is already a difficult task when you take aside the fact that you have this major military disaster going on.
That's right. John Stanton, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, new clashes in New